All right, welcome everybody. This is one of the sessions for the BigBlueButton World 2023 conference. This one is on user experience and user design and how it informs what we're doing with the product. Really, two of the key people from the project who have been involved a lot on user design. It's something that we have always been doing and will always continue to do doing to make the best user experience. So I'm going to turn it over to uh, Bruno Valentini, who works at MConf, involved in their design team, and Tyler Copeland, who, if you watched any of the past conferences or BigBlueButton sessions, Tyler has been with us since the beginning of the project and has pioneered and spearheaded all the designs of BigBlueButton. Bruno, Tyler, over to you.
Sounds good, Fred. Yeah, it's actually amazing to have another face beside me here on these virtual conferences. As a designer earlier on in an open source project, design isn't usually part of the equation in open source. It's often developers solving problems. But fast forward to today, we have myself, Bruno, we have the team at MConf, and individuals around the world who have started to contribute to this project from a design perspective. And I have to say, it's such a surreal moment to be able to say that, we have a design community working towards supporting BigBlueButton. So we have a fun presentation here. I'm going to walk you through a lot of some new thinking we have behind how we approach design. And then afterwards, I'm going to hand it off to Bruno, where the team at MConf has taken a similar philosophy on approaching design and have solved a really interesting problem, or ideated and kind of solutioning a really interesting problem um, in addressing some of their customer needs. So I'll kick it off and we can get started. So really to go over today, just a fun overview of the history of the design of BigBlueButton, some early thinking, we talked about earlier as we jumped on the call, the paper mock-ups on the screen. And then from there, we're going to walk through the product design process. Some folks here who are product designers or have been through the process before on their teams or would be familiar with it. However, I'm going to touch on it just to kind of expose the open source community around how they can take this thinking, apply it to even in the organizations to help, solve problems or even problems they are working on in the context of BigBlueButton. How we've started to really empathize with the teacher. We're really focusing on making sure we're providing a really good tool for them, but also students at the same time. But this conversation would be focused around teachers. Reframe our thinking, and then afterwards, an amazing showcase from Bruno on the MCOP team around how they've taken this philosophy as well and are tackling a really fun problem. Okay, great. So I'm going to jump into the product design history. So right now, again, if you've been any of my talks before, I love leading off with this one because this is actually the first design of BigBlueButton on a chalkboard in the university by Fred and Richard. And it's always so cool to see how far we have come. But this is the official first design of BigBlueButton. From there, we had to build a digital interface. So we've leveraged some open source layouts, which was the Flash client. That evolved into something that myself here earlier on in the journey really tried to experiment with. How do we, build something that's scalable as part of an open source technology product? A lot of people contribute to it and they are extending it in various ways. So really building a modular system was kind of the focus and some really core principles we had on the design side of things. And then you can see BigBlueButton evolving, different modules, being able to integrate different experiences. And then HTML5 client came around, and we really had to figure out how to build a modular and scalable solution. And we always reference that we were very much a mobile first approach, scalable, collapsing. So imagine this was your browser, just collapsing your browser. Everything just form fits exactly the screen and screen resolution that you're working on. So principles, we're always thinking mobile first. How do we solve these complex problems from that perspective, and building anything that is scalable and ensuring any design solutions we put together are scalable in that manner. So next up is, what is a design process? I know a lot of people have talked about it, design process, product design process, design thinking, etc. But really at the bare minimum, the product design process allows organizations to take this process and build a systematic process to build solutions based off the needs and wants of their customers. So really, if you want to build a successful product, it's like getting down to the root of the needs and the wants of the customers and building solution around those really strong pain points. So from the philosophy of which we're starting to integrate in the BigBlueButton project is how do we actually take this philosophy and go through the entire process? So really at the end of the day, there's five main groupings. So at the beginning, it's talking to customers, it's talking to end users, and really understanding those pain points and needs, building themes, and then working towards those themes in various types of projects. Once you've gotten into like kind of an area of focus that you want to work on based on your research efforts, that's where you start to define it, the real problem that you're working on, and from a team, a user, etc. And then from there, you ideate on those defined problems until you start to come up with something that you're confident with. From there, you would prototype the efforts, and then that allows you to actually be able to go test it with customers. Once you're on your ideal end user, when you're in the test phase, there's arrows here that scale back to any step away because the crucial part of testing allows you to figure out one, okay, well, the speed of which this solves a problem, however, the speed of doing it takes a long time. Imagine that was the feedback that you received. Well, you don't have to go back to the beginning, or you don't necessarily need to ship it right away. There's still some improvements. Well, that's where you can go back to prototyping or your ideation phase. Well, maybe we can do one or two tweaks to that to make that experience exponentially better. Or maybe you were far off with the prototype, realizing that you actually were solving the wrong problem. So then you could come back to the beginning, reach out to customers, define. However, the topic of this has been of the product design process. There's a lot of amazing material online, but it's really just helping this community here around the BigBlueButton project just to think a little bit differently when we solve problems. Not just go and say, hey, I think we need this, but really talking to customers, building solution around those true pain points. So here's an example of how we've actually started to proceed with this. So we really internally wanted to understand the day in the life of a teacher. What is it like? And it doesn't have to be in the physical world, or we really didn't focus on it being in the physical world, remote world, hybrid world. It's really agnostic of where they're teaching. What is the day in the life? What are the problems that they have day to day, week to week, etc. Interactions with students and so forth. And then from there, once we gain that knowledge, and secondary question we had is, what were the challenges teachers faced while transitioning to the physical classroom to the online format? Like early theme that we heard constantly was your lecture slides that were set up, going next every single time in a large physical classroom doesn't necessarily translate one for one to the digital format. There needs to be this pulse experience that happens. You need to stop, check in with the users, ask questions, and kind of repeat on the basic on certain aspects of the slides, just to always have check-ins, build some collaboration piece, and really allow the users to feel engaged as they're going through, a lecture that could be anywhere from an hour to 3 hours in a remote setting. So while we were going through this efforts on the core team, we needed to find a structured template to leverage to really categorize this information. So we leverage the known behavioral archetypes, which focuses on the user's goals, thoughts, needs, feelings, pain points, and actions. So from there, we focused on user groups to talk to them. There's a variety of different approaches you can take. You can do one-on-one interviews. However, for the sake of time, as teachers are quite busy during the school year, we really focused on leveraging the focus group approach. So we had around 5 to 6 teachers part of each sessions, and we asked them a series of questions. And the questions that we leveraged here was really just getting to know the users. Everyone has their own story about how they got to where they are today as a teacher, their teachers' patterns, etc. And then from there, just really getting to know them and their experience using BigBlueButton. And absolutely amazing discussions we've had, so many great insights. Culturally, it's been amazing just to talk to teachers from around the world and really start to narrow in how we can address their needs. And again, another action item from this conversation as well is anyone here today can definitely take these approaches to problem solving and try to integrate them internally within the organization. This here is, more than happy to have folks extend this into their organization. So, as you can imagine, dozens and dozens of teachers, the amount of insights that we received were a lot. So, how do you take these insights? You feel anytime you talk to a group of customers, you just come from it so energized. You're like, you're really empathizing with them. You have a million ideas of which you could solve their problems, but what we really needed to do is find a way to categorize them into specific areas. So dependent on your organization, there's a bunch of different tactics you can use. For us, though, we categorize them into these four pillars. So getting to know the users, like who they are as individuals, their product use, what we like as the end user, their needs, what are their primary needs, and then the pain points is like, I wish, these are the issues that I'm facing that I'm not able to do my day-to-day job. I wish this was easier and better. So this here is giving you like that aerial view of how we think when we're categorizing information from customers. This actually ended up being a lot larger. However, I wanted to give you a small fun snapshot. And then this here all boiled into some themes. So um, here we built out three behavioral archetypes. So this was one cluster, and you can see here how the feedback, again, were grouped into different clusters. So, split screen experience, whiteboard movability, engagement and interactions, etc. And these insights here helped form the behavioral archetypes that you see here. And what's so amazing around this is that we can hold this up, on a wall at the office or reference as we're working as designers and really remind ourselves of who we're building solutions for. So there's always amazing things here that you can see, like I need a little interruption as possible during the class so my students stay focused, or I feel bad for my students who get left behind during the lectures and need more attention. So really ensuring the quality of your from a teacher's perspective that the students are absorbing this information. Like what happens if, unlike a classroom, like everyone, you can see 15 hand raises or someone just speaks out loud or to clarify a question. And some of that is truly missed in the online format. So always reminding yourself the feelings of what's happening during the classroom from a teacher's perspective always ensures that we're working towards that amazing end goal. Again, here is another cluster. So here we have, again, the prep work, we have, shapes and grids. A lot of the feedback here that we have are around, again, breakout rooms and the whiteboard functionality and screen sharing and sharing content and engagement and collaboration. So a lot of really big parent themes. However, again, here with John, I would like to be able to have all the tools available that I would in a physical classroom and be able to use the grid and shapes to illustrate solutions and problems. So even that moment of a teacher or groups of teachers saying, I'm just missing a lot of these physical classroom experiences and would love to see it in a digital format or see how it could possibly be done in a digital format. The things like thoughts like I want to be able to help my students succeed during the class time to best of their capabilities. Lots of really fun things here to kind of reference again. And then the last one here, Marissa Walker. I'm not going to go into the depths of each of these. Want to be mindful of everyone's time here today. But again, all this is recorded. You can reference it at a future date, and I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards too, if anyone has some. So from there, starting to ideate and focus areas. So here, one of the things too, one of the approaches we've taken specifically that's been really, really successful is, okay, we can work towards short-term problems. We can, we take the customer problem and work a very short-term solution. However, what happens if we framed it in a bit of a different way and go really wide, really abstract, and really think out there from how we may solve the problem and almost have that as our North Star vision? And then from there, work backwards. Okay, if this is where we want to head to, how can we incrementally get there? And how can we, then do smaller design initiatives to work towards that larger, greater goal? So some of the designs here that I'm going to kind of, there's designs on the right, there's problems on the left. They're just really to showcase some of our really wide out there thinking around, some radical ideas of how we can shape Big Blue Button in the future. Nothing is in the roadmap yet, but these visionary kind of mock-ups are helping guide us as a community here as we're all working on Big Blue Button. So things too when we're trying to.
Hey,
Hey Fred. I just muted Fred. Hopefully he was not wanting to jump into the conversation. But here, how might be better surface core functionality that is scalable to future features and integrations of in Big Blue Button here. So things just like a lot of our functionality today, like initiating breakout rooms, the learning analytics dashboard, etc., are actually buried features. Like what if we were to actually surface this? So new customers using Big Blue Button for the first time are able to find things fairly quickly and get comfortable with the platform in a meaningful time versus having to spend more time discovering the ins and outs of our product. And then on top of that, I know there's an earlier call around integrations, but how could other organizations integrate easier with Big Blue Button or add certain integrations into Big Blue Button that can help them with the needs that they have with their organizations or customers? Additional to that is how might we support teachers with understanding how their students are doing in the live classroom? So again, touched on earlier around that fear from teachers understanding how their students are doing. So a lot of the data we're capturing is part of the learning analytics dashboard, but as a out there idea, what happens if we challenged ourselves with bringing that data back into the client? So a user, a teacher doesn't have to toggle between two browser tabs or require a large display to manage both of those. How might we support teachers with understanding how their students are doing during a classroom challenge? So integrating collaboration and not, and say things like, okay, students go off, work on this design challenge or work on this challenge for 5 minutes. As a teacher, when you're in a physical classroom, the teacher's able to walk around the different desks and see if students are working or how are they doing, are they struggling. So really trying to take that grid format and bring it into the digital world where if we had this concept we've been talking about for some time, whiteboard vision, you're able to see how your students are doing on a particular challenge and try to mimic that walking around the classroom experience. How might we make it easier and more intuitive to create a scalable breakout rooms experience for teachers? Definitely a big theme from our customers and teachers out there are how can we make it easier to work on big work and initiate breakout rooms? How can we easily create them? How can they be always there when the classroom starts? Can we resume data from before? So this is one of the ideas. We've thought about so many creative ideas around how to solve these problems. How do we actually leverage this problem in the context of smart slides? So it's in context of your workflow as a teacher. And then lastly, just a fun thing to share as well is like how might we, make sessions more collaborative and interactive to allow students to apply their learning. So infinite whiteboard, how can we make that more collaborative experience? Shared spaces, when you come back to the classroom again after, or, on day one of the classroom to day 12 or week 12, like, can you incrementally see your classroom evolve into the end result of that whole lecture and that whole series of the session? So again, far out there idea, but really challenging ourselves with the problems that we're solving, leveraging all the amazing insights we've had from our teachers. So what's next? Again, these are really large out there ideas. We really want to simplify these even further and start validating them with our teachers. And once we're confident that we are solving the right problems for them, that's when it gets integrated into our roadmap and our pipeline for development efforts. So again, reframing our thinking, all this amazing work has allowed us to really shape our mission for the project. So our mission is to deliver the world's most effective virtual classroom, the most effective virtual classroom that should maximize time, applied learning, and feedback for the students. And it's also helped us shape some pillars. We've focused a lot on the teacher today on the call, but the efforts is going around understanding the student's behavior. And often on our calls with teachers as well, we try to get as much insights from the students themselves, not directly, but just feedback that they've received from students, and really focusing on the pillars of management and relationship building and engagement and assessment. So, here, walking you through this amazing process, I'm going to pass it off to Bruno, where again, another designer, part of the community, has leveraged this very similar process to help them solve an amazing and complex challenge. And I'll pass it off to you, Bruno.
Thank you, Tyler. Here we're going to show you a prototype of hybrid classes that we are developing since the last summit in Berlin. We're very happy because our team and Tyler, we have like the same synergy in the process. So this is like a practical use of all the process that Tyler showed before. So we developed the hybrid class prototype, which was one of idea that Fred bring to us. And we would like to give the students on site the same experience as the students who are learning remote. And also give teacher some data about the students who are on site as the same as he have collected using the BBB platform. So with this prototype, we would like to provide a really hybrid interaction. So students on site and students remote have the same tools, and also collect data from students who are on site. So how can the teacher collect data in an analogical place? And also, it's a really nice way to collect data during the class in a different kind of approach. So, because we identified that learning is happening everywhere, so you can learn on site, you can learn in remote classes, you can learn from books, you can learn from YouTube videos. So we have a lot of different tools that we can get the content. And also, we would like to collect the experience that really matters to the teacher. So how can we quantify and share and track all this information? So with this, we developed the prototype, which is like a way to use the smartphone as a powerful tool, not like a distraction, because we live in a second screen generation. So we would like to mix the digital experience with the technology and pedagogy as one. So thinking of that, we literally design a scenario which is something like that. To show how the products may work. So we have like a university room where we have a QR code really next to the door. So the students, as soon as they arrive, they could connect to the class using the smartphone. And then in the smartphone, we have all the tools that we have in the BBB platform, but in your smartphone. So you can answer polls, raise hands, react, send questions and things like that, but in local room, and also the teacher can collect this data. I will share my screen to show a little bit of our prototype, because we developed to start doing some UX tests. So here we have it's everybody looking to my screen, okay? Okay. Okay. So at the first, the student can identify using the QR code, write down your name, and get into the room. So we have like this interface where the student have polls, questions, chat, and presentation. And also the reactions to give like instant feedback to the teacher. So when you send emoji, the teacher knows that you react at the time of the class. You can raise your hand, so the teacher knows that you have a question, you have a notification. The teacher send a poll, so you can, you can see the presentation in the room, in the screen. So if you're far away from the screen, you can follow through your smartphone, so you can have like a full presentation in your hand. Okay, we have also the poll, so teacher can make a poll, you can answer in your smartphone, and this data is collected in the learning dashboard. You can send a question. If you are a shy person, you can write down and send to the teacher read in another time. You can interact with other students through the chat, so you can send a question, answer a message, and things like that. And also you can share your QR code to a colleague who forgot to get in the room using the QR code in the door of the room. And at the end, you can leave the room and give a feedback about the class and give some ideas. So this is a prototype, so we are still developing, but we would like to make a UX test with some users to validate the idea. But it's all developed with the design principles that Tyler shared with us. Thank you.
Thanks,
to
Bruno.
you, Tyler.
Yeah, no, I think it's this one here is I love this graphic that was put together. It's really kind of you're able to see the problem at a glance and how one would be able to how you all have solved it and how you can easily put yourself in the shoes of both the teacher here and the student. So I was lucky enough to be part of the early prototypes and seeing this all come together, and I'm excited to see how the testing phase of the product design process goes and how one may go back to iterate or talk to more customers, but it's really a really large problem to solve here, and I'm excited to see the next steps for it all. So thank you all for participating today in this conversation. I'm going to open it up to the floor here for any questions that anyone might have. Feel free to unmute yourself or ask questions directly in the chat. I'm happy to answer anything.